wait one more minute.
How you doing, sir? Sure. Good to see you.
All right. Have you guys done a sound check already? Yes, yes. Good to go. All right, good afternoon. I'm Annie Sims, the Public Information Officer with the Winston-Salem Police Department. This press conference is in light of the 5 homicides that occurred in the city of Winston-Salem last week and the injury of a law enforcement official that occurred last night. So the following order will be how we go about this. The recount of the 5 homicides, just so you guys kind of have them all collectively together, will be done by Lieutenant George, and he is in our Criminal Investigations Division. And then the recount of our pursuit that occurred last night, which involves the injury of a law enforcement official, will be done by Captain Olivo of our Field Services Bureau. Remarks regarding uptick in violence and saturation patrol will be Chief William H. Penn, Jr. Remarks regarding injury of a deputy and saturation patrol will be done by Sheriff Bobby F. Kimbrough, Jr. Remarks regarding community involvement and injury on law enforcement officials will be done by Forsyth County District Attorney Jim O'Neill. And without further ado, I would like to welcome up Lieutenant George.
Good afternoon. As Ms. Sims said, I'm Lieutenant George with the Criminal Investigation Division, and I'm going to recount the 5 homicides, a general overview from this past week. At approximately 11:12 p.m. on June 18th, 2024, officers with the Winston-Salem Police Department responded to a reported shooting at the address of 4196 Edgeware Road. Upon arrival, officers located 2 victims, later identified as Rex Dion Payne and Travis Anthony Leslie, both suffering from gunshot wounds. Mr. Payne was located deceased in the residence, and Mr. Leslie was transported to a local hospital where he ultimately succumbed to his injuries. Moving on to the next one. At approximately 12:06 a.m. on June 20th, 2024, Winston-Salem Police Department officers responded to a reported shooting at the address of 1011 South Sunset Drive. Upon arrival, officers located 1 victim, later identified as John Wesley Ingram. Mr. Ingram was located deceased from an apparent gunshot wound. At approximately 9:39 a.m. on June 20th, Winston-Salem police officers responded to a reported deceased black male lying on the ground near 1631 West Northwest Boulevard. The victim has been positively identified as 35-year-old Brandon Michael Odom. Further investigation revealed that Mr. Odom died as a result of a gunshot wound to the upper torso. At approximately 12:26 a.m. on June 23rd, 2024, Winston-Salem officers responded to a reported shooting at the address of 2915 Starlight Drive. Upon arrival, officers located 4 victims, later identified as Angelo de la Cruz Calleja, Rosa Medina, Oscar Lopez, and Eugenio Lopez. All victims were located suffering from gunshot wounds. Rosa Medina, Oscar Lopez, and Eugenio Lopez were taken to a local hospital for treatment for their injuries. Angelo de la Cruz Calleja was located deceased upon the arrival of police. Officers later learned Ostroberto Marin Figueroa arrived at a local hospital suffering from gunshot wounds. Ostroberto Marin Figueroa has been arrested and charged with general murder as a result of this investigation. Mr. Figueroa has been placed in the Forsyth County Detention Center under no bond allowed. Throughout the course of these investigations, we have determined the homicides of last week to be isolated incidents. There is no danger to the community. Currently, we've now had 17 homicides in 2024, which compares to 28 homicides with the same time frame last year in 2023. We continue to ask the assistance of our community by submitting tips through text-to-tip at 336-276-1717. Again, that's 336-276-1717. Or by Crime Stoppers at 336-727-2800, 336-727-2800. Okay. At this time, I'd like to introduce Captain Olivo for the next topic.
Good afternoon, everybody. At approximately 2:15 a.m. this morning, officers were in the area of the 1200 block of South Martin Luther King Drive when they heard gunshots. As a result, officers started to circulate and located a red passenger car fleeing the area where the gunshots were heard. Officers attempted a traffic stop on South Martin Luther King Jr. Drive near Tower Street when the suspect vehicle fled, resulting in a vehicle pursuit. During the pursuit, a Forsyth County Sheriff's Office deputy was working an off-duty highway construction detail in the area of westbound 40 near Clemensville Road, providing visibility and protection for a road construction crew. The deputy exited their vehicle to warn the crew of the approaching pursuit so that they can get to safety prior to the suspect vehicle entering the work area. The deputy was struck by the suspect vehicle while trying to get out of the way. The pursuit was terminated shortly after, and all occupants of the vehicle were taken into custody without incident. A firearm was located along with multiple shell casings. The deputy was transported to a local hospital with non-life-threatening injuries. The identity of the deputy will not be released at this time. A more detailed media release will be sent out at the conclusion of this press conference with the arrestees, charges, and more specific details. Thank you, and I hand it off to Chief Penn.
I'd like to begin by offering heartfelt condolences to those who've lost a loved one this past week. I'd also like to offer a speedy recovery to our brother in Brown with the Sheriff's Office, who was injured while assisting us in getting violent criminals off our streets. This was a deadly week. We saw lots of violence and loss of life. I'm disheartened by the violence that we saw this week in our community. However, I do want to reassure the community that the general public is safe, and these were all isolated incidents due to the evidence gathered throughout the investigations thus far. I also like the community to know that despite the recent uptick in violence we saw in the past week, we're still 40% down in homicides from last year, and almost all of our violent crime categories, we're down. This continues to be my message. We must work together to combat violent crime in our community. Law enforcement is doing their part by removing those off the street who seek to commit violence as a way of resolving conflict. We must report information in law enforcement proactively, and we have to work to resolve our issues peacefully. As an effort to continue our commitment to public safety, and in conjunction with our partners at the Forsyth County Sheriff's Office, effective immediately, we'll be increasing saturation patrol throughout our city, in addition to our already saturation, which is our foot patrols, our downtown augmentation, bike patrol, etc. I will now invite our Sheriff Kimbrough, up to speak more on our saturation patrol efforts, as well as provide remarks.
Appreciate you, Chief. First of all, let me say good afternoon. I really appreciate you all being here. I want to thank the community for their prayers for our deputy that was injured last night. He's a 10-year plus veteran. As was stated earlier, he was out working an off-duty hustle last night in the area. 1043 came out, shots fired. As he was trying to warn the crew that the vehicle was coming that way, he was struck. He is recovering at Atrium Hospital. He has a broken pelvis and a broken elbow. He will be undergoing surgery to correct those injuries. But I want to thank the public, and I want to thank all of you for the prayers and the concern. It's just another reminder that the men that were black, the men that were blue, whatever color they were, the people that serve and protect these communities are willing to put their lives out there to do what it takes to serve and protect this community. What I stopped by to tell you is this, is that the Forsyth County Sheriff's Office will be putting people out working in conjunction with the Winston-Salem Police Department and other area law enforcement agencies in areas to put a multitude of personnel on the street, what we refer to and you refer to as saturation patrol. We will begin that immediately. I firmly believe that there is a correlation between visibility and some of the things that are happening, and we plan to be more visible, working with my partner, Chief Penn, and a few other law enforcement chiefs in this area. We will be putting bodies on the street immediately. And so I stopped by again to share that with you and also to thank the community for what you're doing. As a reminder, this is not a police just issue, it is a public safety issue, as we talk about it so many times. We have to band together as a public, as a community, to change the narrative. I'd like to invite my friend to the podium, District Attorney Mr. Jim O'Neill. Again, thank you.
Good afternoon. Jim O'Neill, Forsyth County District Attorney. Let me begin by first saying, of course, that the District Attorney's Office families and supporters, our love and support goes out to our deputy that was struck last night. And I'm reminded, of course, of John 15:13. No greater love has one than to lay down his life for his friends. And that's what law enforcement does day in and day out, and we pray that he'll be okay, Sheriff Kimbrough. The uptick in violence, as you've heard, the murders that have occurred recently, defendant and victim knew each other, prior relationships. What happened last night, of course, a different story. It appears that guns were shot into a house that was occupied by children under the age of 10, 6 children under the age of 10. That is unforgivable. I can tell you and make a promise to my community again that we take gun violence extremely seriously in this city. We have formed a group known as the Chronic with my partners in law enforcement, the chief and the sheriff, and we look at every gun case that is made in this city and in this county where violence is committed with a firearm. We try to figure out the best method of prosecution, whether it's in state court or whether it's in federal court, with our partners in the federal system. We bring tremendous pressure and resources down when somebody picks up a gun and discharges that gun at another human being. I can promise you the bonds will stay high when somebody's arrested for a crime of violence committed with a gun. We will do everything we can to increase the bond if possible. After doing this for more than 25 years, I'm still shocked that somebody in this community, when they see what kind of punishments are given day in and day out for crimes committed with guns. I don't understand why someone would pick up a gun and shoot at another person knowing that you are going to get caught. You're going to get caught, you're going to be arrested, and you're going to be prosecuted. And when you're brought to court on charge of killing someone else with a gun, your lawyer will be asking us to show some mercy in court. And mercy starts at about 25 years. Why in the world would you pick up a gun and shoot someone else when you know you're going to get caught and you know that the punishment given out is going to be severe and life-changing for you and your family? Put the guns down. Law enforcement is going to have an increased presence the rest of the summer. They will be visible They will be everywhere. And that tends to have a calming effect. And law enforcement will make arrests. And the district attorney's office will hold your feet to the fire. Put the guns down. Don't ever point a gun at another human being. Thank you.
So that's the conclusion of our press conference. We'll open up for a few questions. A lot of these cases are ongoing, so we just can't answer a lot right now. But if you have a few questions to clarify, we can answer those at this time.
Just a few questions about the saturation control. One, about how many officers will be extra on the street, and then two, will they mainly focus in downtown, or will they kind of fan out to the areas where the homicides take place?
I'm going to let Chief Penn answer this.
Now, we aren't going to give out all of our tactics about the numbers, but we'll be out in full force. And the second question was,
About where will they be located? Is it mainly just going to be downtown, or are they kind of going to fan out further?
right, so we've always let data let us know where the issues are, and that's where we'll be. So we're not going to be concentrated in downtown. We're going to go where the crime is occurring, where the shots are being fired, where folks feel like they have to resolve conflict with weapons. That's where we'll be.
Chief, summer just started maybe officially just a few days ago. Can you go off of just the correlation between having more officers in the community to prevent a violent summer?
Right, so we've seen in the past when there's visibility, when officers are out, when deputies are out, being seen, we've seen crime decrease. And what I'd also like to say is, I have faith in this community that they can put aside the weapons and resolve conflict without shooting at one another. In fact, this past May, just last month, we did just that as a community. But I also have faith in the Winston-Salem Police Department, in the Forsyth County Sheriff's Office, and our District Attorney's Office. Together, again, it's public safety. We all play a role in keeping this community safe.
If you remember last year, as Chief was alluding about putting people on the street, last year in July, we used our SROs and placed them, normally the SROs that are typically in the schools, we placed them out in the community working in conjunction with the police department, the various units within the police department. And one of the things that he and I talk about constantly is that when you marry these units up together, his unit, the JIT unit, the THRAT unit, the SRO's unit, and you have more visibility in the community feels safer. And while the community feels safer, those that would be considering doing something that is not for the good of the people or the good of the community, they think twice about that, because you have more men and women out there that are serving to protect, and that's a game changer. That's a difference. You know, back when I was growing up, they would say the streets are hot. When the streets are hot, what that means is that the law enforcement, the police are on the street.
Okay, two more questions.
Yeah, Phil Sterling, ABC 45. So from what I'm understanding, visibility, the heat, they played a role in this uptick in violence this week, or is there other factors that we're not aware of?
Say that again? The heat?
The heat, visibility, they played a role in the uptick in violence, is that correct?
No, that's not when he's talking about.
No, when I said the streets are hot, right? That is a colloquialism that is used back in certain parts of the community. The street is hot, which equates to the police are out, right? Not necessarily the temperature, 90 degrees, 80 degrees. Streets being hot is a reference to the police are out on the streets. So basically what I'm saying is that we're going to increase the visibility of law enforcement on the street. Yeah.
If I got this correct, he had mentioned, O'Neill had mentioned that these were all things where people had known each other or prior relationships, except last night where somebody had shot into an occupied residence. Do I have that correct? So 4 of them were prior relationship surfaced, and then other was just kind of like a drive-by shooting.
Right, so the last one was a drive-by shooting.
Or any of these homicides, last 5, gang-related? The reason
So-
why I ask is because when I cover these cases, when they come to court, ultimately, most of them are gang-related. So are these 5 recent homicides gang-related?
So what I'll say is that there's a difference between gang-related and folks being involved in a gang. So what I would tell you on the last one, we haven't ruled that out, that was gang-related.
We said last one, you mean the one that happened on Starlight Drive?
No, the one that happened last night. It wasn't a homicide.
But the 5 from last week have not
Right.
seemed gang-related.
Right, gang-related, and the folks knew one another.
One more question.
Yeah, and just to go off, so summer, kids are out of school, they're just enjoying their summer. We know last night that involved several kids under the age of 10. One of the victims from last week, 18. What is the message that you have for parents on preventing a safe summer as well?
Right, so parents are the first line of defense. First, ensuring your children aren't out committing the crimes. So that's number one. And number 2 is when you see something, you say something. Get us involved. Get law enforcement involved and let us do what we do.
Thank you, guys, and as always, I'll stay up here for a few minutes, so if you have any more clarifying questions, then I can answer those.
There was an appeal that was denied of a gun case with a person had a gun from 2022. I can get the statistics for all your reports of gunfire from 2022.
So, speaking to aggravated assaults, the aggravated assaults is different.
I actually propped it because that right there is loose. I kind of propped her. So I thought it was going to fall over.